Got 20 seconds. Come on, Amanda, go.
Keep moving. Good. Get those knees up. Explode. Good. Explode. Let's go. Up.
Rock forward. Let's go. One more.
You are listening to the Fight Strength Podcast with your hosts, Phil Daru and Jason Burgos.
Hello, fighting and fitness fans, and thanks for tuning in to episode 31 of Fight Strength Podcast. I am Jason Burgos, MMA journalist and contributor for MMAsucker.com, and of course with me is the Iron Man of the strength and conditioning industry, and a trainer very busy preparing some top stars at American Top Team, some big ass fights coming up very soon. That is the Phil Daru. Phil Daru, good afternoon. How are you?
Man, I'm good, but I'm the very busy father of Elias Theodorou right now.
That's the ultimate training.
He is not playing around, so if you hear him in the background later today, we did our interview earlier, so you'll hear him playing with his trucks. And you know how I do it, man. It's a Sunday afternoon, so it's Daddy's Day. Monday will be the show now airing, right?
Yep, Mondays, remember that? Mondays, 9:30.
9:30 on Monday mornings. As of right now, I am playing Daddy while Mommy does her thing.
That's how you gotta do it.
Yeah, when you're in real estate, weekends are the work days.
Oh, really? So that's it makes sense because that's when everybody's at work. They have the weekend to go look at houses and apartments. That sucks.
Yeah.
Gotta make that cash. So this week we have on one of the best middleweight fighters in the world and an all-around cool and fun guy, and that is Elias Theodorou. However, if you have missed previous episodes of the show with other top fighters like Dustin Poirier, Tyron Woodley, and of course part of the co-main event for this past weekend's UFC Orlando, that was Tisha Torres, also a previous guest on the show, then you can check out our pages on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, SoundCloud, and Google Play Music. Just search Fight Strength Podcast on those services. You will find all of our previous episodes. Now, I want to get some house cleaning out of the way and let you guys know we will aim to have, like Phil just said, every episode of the show Mondays at 9:30 a.m. Sometimes we'll have it a Tuesday, Thursday. We're going to be diligent, try to get you to Mondays, 9:30 a.m. so you can always prepare, look for it at that time. It'll be Fight Strength episodes. It'll be FSP, whenever. Mondays, 9:30. Also want to mention those interested in sponsoring the show and getting your products heard on the show, check out our sponsoring info page. It's attached to our Fight Strength Podcast Facebook page, or email us at fightstrengthpodcast@gmail.com. If you got any questions, you're interested, we have package deals, we have per episode deals. Just let us know and we will give you some sponsorship and sell you stuff. We're down for selling stuff, nothing wrong with that. Now of course we got to jump right into, before we get to our guests, our traditional Ask Daru segment. Phil, what do you have for us this week?
All right, so this question is from Alex Dowson. I hope I spelled his name right or said his name right. It's spelled Dowson, so I think I got it right. But anyways, he's from the UK, and what he asked was, first he asked, how would I get started in the industry, being a strength and conditioning coach for combat sport athletes. And basically, like I said, as everybody knows by now, if you've been listening to the shows, my journey, how I became pretty much working with American Top Team as a traditional, I was just a fighter there. Then from there, worked my way up into working with my teammates, and then from there, eventually got the full-time job at American Top Team as the strength and conditioning coach. But then he goes on and asks, and from a networking standpoint, did that further develop my skills as a coach? Now, as far as networking goes, this right here, as far as what we do with the podcast, what I do, what you can do at Instagram by DMing these coaches, you can actually reach out to these coaches and network and get to know them, ask them questions like people ask me, people that ask other big names that we had even on the podcast. This is how we can communicate and get better and ask questions and do things to propel our profession as a strength and conditioning coach. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to reach out to these higher level coaches if you want to actually, excel in your craft.
I mean, yeah, and perfect example. I mean, like Joe DeFranco, how great of a guest was he? Because he does also podcasting and all these videos. He can come on a show and speak well and be very eloquent and funny and everything. And I'm sure, I mean, you could probably attest to this. I'm sure that's got to help with your like seminar work, like getting the practice on this or just on the seminars and vice versa. That's got to be good for just selling yourself and making it easy.
And to be honest, I mean, yeah, that's true too. As far as a strength and conditioning coach, we are coaches, but at the same time, we are trying to brand ourselves because that's how we make, that's how we make our money, is to actually get ourselves out there and show what we know and put out content as much as possible. If we can't do that, then we're not going to make as much money as we possibly can, and we're not going to be able to be successful at it. But at the same time, we're not trying to do this all for the money, but we still need to make a living for trying to go ahead and raise a family like I'm doing.
Yeah.
And but I mean, like I said, with the thing with Joe, if I were to never to go, let's say, to New York that one time and actually go up to him and meet him, or actually introduce myself, knowing that we knew each other mutually from other people, then we may have never got him on the podcast. I may have never had him, as I would call him now, somewhat of a friend and a mentor. So. And the same thing goes for Tony Ricci in the same aspect. So I feel like that's a key thing. Just don't be afraid to go up there and introduce yourself and really reach out to these higher level people in the business.
Do you like what's your experience and when you are meeting these people? Like, did Tony you meet in person or it was like through social media? And is there more of a friendliness to each other because you are part of the fraternity of like trainers? So if you do DM somebody on Instagram or whatever, are guys more open to say, hey, yeah, sure, I'll help you out?
I think how me and Tony got started was with Corey Peacock, and I met Corey just through the networking of fighters down in Florida. So me and Corey knew each other from just working with fighters that worked with each other. So that actually helped out there. And then when I reached out to Tony, he actually knew who I was from then. So it was cool to see that he was actually following me and then I was following him. And then all I had to do was just reach out to him, and that started the the relationship and the partnership that we have now.
And how much is it? Is it you gotta get past any issues, and you gotta be a little bit outgoing and just get out there and say hello to people and shake some hands because it's not easy for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, and to be honest, man, if you're a strength and conditioning coach, you have to be able to do that type of stuff. You have to have, you can't be, secluded and drawn in. You know what I mean? You have to get out there, talk to people, and every chance that you get, try to talk your stuff up, man. Let people know that you know what you're talking about, and let people know, your passion. And if you can show your passion with everything that you talk about, just like I do with the podcast, when anybody asks me a question, or even when I get questions on Instagram or through email, I'll make sure that I give them the best answer I possibly can. If I can't, I'll make sure that I research it and then answer it when I can. So, you can't be secluded. You can't be drawn in. You have to make sure that you are outgoing and you're talking to people and not being so, even when like I was a kid, I wasn't the most outgoing person, but I think sports in general helped me to develop that leadership quality and that captain type abilities to go out there and actually talk to these individuals that I know that are on the same level, if not higher than me, and still be able to hold a quality conversation and get to know them and they get to know me.
Yeah. I mean, and just, for anybody out there, like these questions that Phil's answering, I mean, for our Ask Daru, if you ever want to ask Phil a question, I mean, he's available, and, message him on Instagram. We'll save it for the show. You can email us at fightstrength at podcast@gmail. If you have any Ask Daru questions, you can contact us on Facebook page. I mean, if you want to ask me some MMA industry business questions, either one, just let us know. Contact us there. Is that the it for the question, or is there some more to it?
We got a couple more.
Okay,
Let me go ahead and
shoot them out there
real quick, because I want to make sure I get all these questions knocked out for this guy. So he also wrote, having a professional MMA career background, did that help me as well as a coach?
Yeah.
Now, yes, I'm going to say for me, yes, it has, because I can actually, connect with these guys on another level. Where when I just wrote an article on the art of coaching fighters, and you can check that out at fightcampconditioning.com. But, understanding the way that these fighters really learn and go about doing things, and also how their mentality is through training camps and through weight cutting and through the fight itself, I can connect with them on a different level than, say, your average strength coach that comes in without that backing or that sporting background. And this is strictly for combat sports. Now, I'm not saying that you need to be a fighter to train fighters. That's not the case. That's not at all. I got a lot of colleagues. I respect a lot of colleagues that never had a fighting background whatsoever, never even stepped on a mat, that can still train and coach fighters. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that for me, I believe that that's the best way possible to that's the best way possible to connect with these guys on that level. Now, as far as for me being successful in strength coaching for fighters, it's still the same as far as learning and knowing a scientific approach, and then the practical application through your experiences with fighters. So if you can take that science background that you have, that you gain from a baseline of knowledge, just from standard schooling, basic physiology, basic anatomy, basic biomechanics, if you can understand that process, then you can correlate that into the sport. Now, you obviously have to know the sport itself. You cannot be oblivious to, the certain bioenergetic demands of the sport. But at the same time, you don't have to always be in the trenches with them. But for me, I like to do that. I like to still train. I still train in the gi. I still roll every now and again. I even told Dustin the other day, if he needed a training partner to be a body for Justin Gagey, go ahead. Now, I'm not saying that this is going to be a good look for me, because I'm not, one, I haven't sparred in a long time, and two, I would have to change from southpaw to orthodox. So Dustin will be tagging me up pretty easily. At the same time, though, I'm willing to step in there and make it happen, and I have the abilities to help him out as well. Not saying that a strength coach has to actually do that. That's not a part of our job description whatsoever. Yeah. But and when we're going back to the art of coaching, is that the fighter sees that. The fighter sees that you're willing to go the extra mile to help him get ready for a fight, and that right there helps the cohesiveness of the bond and the unity that you'll have with your fighter. So.
Yeah, I mean, and even guys like, Dr. Corey Peacock, I think even PJ Nessler, they came from like a football background there, I believe, and they're, at least definitely Corey, and they're working with MMA fighters, but they do the training too, because they weren't martial artists or maybe fighters at some point before they started doing this, but like you just said, you kind of need to know it, and you need to get in there, kind of understand it if you really want to be good at it, and I think that's a great point. You have to jump on them because you are really in it.
I would say at the very least, get into some sort of martial art. Train a little bit of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, no, it's worth it. It's
wrestling. And that's fun. And like I said, Jason, like now you're doing some, and I think you're doing some boxing now, and then you've done some jiu-jitsu and things like that in the past. I mean, it's good to know the sport just in case, especially when you're watching it and like you don't know exactly what the hell's going on, and that kind of just diminishes your abilities as a coach, so you want to know exactly what's going on from that perspective.
All right. Any more? Last one, or one more?
That's it right there.
All right, that is it. Hopefully, that answers all your questions. It is now time to bring on our guest. He's a sometimes actor, model, and even has tried stand-up comedy, but the sports world knows him as one of the best middleweight fighters out there, having been talented fighters like Sam Alvey and Daniel Kelly. He's the man guys want to be and the man ladies want to be with, and he will soon be strutting his stuff as a ring card boy at Invicta FC 28. He is the 14-2 UFC star, Elias Theodorou. Elias, thank you for coming on the show this week. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Excited to be here and chat.
Awesome, man. So 14-2, that's a great record. Can you give the people listening like a quick overview or a past history of what you've been through as far as your come up in the game and how you got started in mixed martial arts?
Yeah, for sure. Well, technically it's actually 15-2. The UFC counts. The UFC counts my semifinal win in the Ultimate Fighter. Which I went on to win my season and be the first Canadian to win the Ultimate Fighter. I guess we can start with the fact that I don't have the traditional background in mixed martial arts. I didn't, do wrestling when I was 8 or, karate when I was 10 or anything in between. I actually started after my first year of university. I was enlightened in the mind and thought the body should follow. And I I didn't step foot in a actual martial arts gym until I was 19, 20, I believe. So just still less than 10 years in my martial arts career in all capacity. But now as a mixed martial artist competing in the highest platform, the UFC, I've accomplished a 6-2 record, and I'm excited to get that into the double digits in regards to 10. Not only because 10 is a powerful number, it's the basis of the decimal system, but I'm looking forward to kicking more ass every single day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you sound like a very well-read individual. What was your major in college? Like, what did you study?
Yeah, I went to school for advertising. So in many ways, I'm advertising the brand that is myself. I'm essentially a boutique ad agency with the brands that I've worked with, whether it's developing the main event, trademark included, and touting myself as the owner of the best hair in combat sports. And then also, I work with Mattel, relaunching their Rock'em Sock'em robots this Christmas, and many other brands that I work with. So, I took a non-traditional route, but I'm very much an advertiser at heart.
All right, fair enough. I mean, of course, as you mentioned, I'm sure you get questions on the luscious hair, but I don't want to talk about that. I mean, that's an easy way out. However, we need to talk about the upcoming ring card boy work for Invicta, because inquiring minds have to know, have you chosen your outfit yet for this big event?
Yes, I have. Well, I'm going to be very classy and professional as I step out for Invicta 28, March 24th in Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm going to be wearing athletic shorts, kind of like mid-thigh, and then I'm going to be wearing athletic hoodie that's going to be open in the front, showing off both the abs and the nipples.
Oh,
there.
Very, very risque.
And it'll be cutless. And it will be also a great opportunity for me to be proudly, displaying all my sponsors, because in regards to the actual Invicta outfit, I will be actually allowed to wear all my sponsors. And if all goes well, there'll be some really big name brands that will be joining me as my debut as Invicta Ring Boy.
Oh, very nice. I mean, of course, the big question is, I know you've been making the rounds and been on different shows about it, but I didn't get to hear it yet. So how did this all come together? I mean, of course, you did the local event in Canada, and that brought a lot of attention, but who contacted who to get you on board to do this for Invicta, which is a pretty big deal, and, they're on Fight Pass, and they're one of the major organizations out there. How did it all come together for this to happen?
Yeah, no, well, I used my segment, Ring Boy, to kind of promote my YouTube channel, the main event, trademark as well, and use it as an opportunity to get some, headlines and attention in that regard. But once the video came together, it turned out really well, and I thought it really did justice to not only myself but also the profession as a ring card holder. And I brought it to Shannon Knapp of Invicta, and she loved it. And, we both were on the same page right away to make this, like I mentioned, a very classy and professional opportunity as Ring Boy. And it's something I look forward to doing more than just the one and done. If all goes well, I'll be gracing Invicta for every event moving forward.
Oh, interesting. I mean, the last question regarding it, have you heard anything from any other fighters that would be interested in doing it? Like me personally, I would love Derrick Lewis doing this, the Black Beast, ring card beast. That would be pretty hilarious.
I definitely agree. And that's actually one of the reasons why I own the trademark, Ring Boy, because I'm going to be creating an actual calendar. And
nice.
I'm going to be promoting body positive image and having many different heavyweight fighters illustrated on it as well. I think this is a huge opportunity to, not only display myself as a ring boy, but many other people that don't quite fit the, the model of a quote-unquote model.
That's funny. I mean, that's a great thing that you're doing, to be honest with you, because with all actuality, hold on one second. My son's over here playing in the background. Sorry about that, guys.
No need to apologize.
It's all good. But what I wanted to know was, I mean, you obviously have a structured body. You know what I'm saying? You are a body of art. Like, from pretty much what we see, you have abs. You're the poster boy. But what do you do as far as your strength and conditioning? What is your what's your program look like? What are you doing as far as from a physical preparation standpoint? How do you work that out in between all the things that you're doing with Invicta and then you're fighting the UFC, things like that?
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, one of the big things that I've, over the last few years have started to accomplish is being an athlete 365. In my younger years, I in many ways, was a professional athlete almost in schedule, like in the capacity of quarters, right? Like, so I would get a fight, take 2 months to get ready, and then, work hard, play hard. Still an opportunity to do that in some regards. But, unlike hockey, I'll use a very Canadian example. If when the Leafs, don't make the playoffs, they go to Florida and play golf all summer or all winter, right? So I, on the other hand, stay in shape 365. In regards to a specific plan, it's usually agility to start, some strength and conditioning. Well, everything's conditioned. Strength and power, and then finishing with conditioning. It really then depends on what we're, how far along we are in camp, or what our end goals are. Is it, are we focusing more on the strength or the power? Are we trying to get certain, components in the agility? And then, closer to fight night, the last month or so, it's much more conditioning, because that's, that's the last little thing that you need to worry about, especially in my case. I don't really get, everything I do in some capacity is conditioning, whether it's sparring or, water drilling, et cetera, et cetera. So the conditioning component is kind of less focused on, where with me, a lot of it was in the last 2 or 3 years, essentially focusing on the structure. It's all the in-between athletic positions, because I've always been a big, strong person, but it's always that stabilizing component that I needed to work on, the stabilizing muscles, and that's what I've built over the last couple of years.
Nice, that's awesome.
I mean, you are the only. Whatever. You're a fighter on the way up. You are trying to get to main events and big positions, title shots, opportunities, that come to grow your brand, just grow your name and grow further in the sport. What are your thoughts on when fighters, say like a Michael Bisping, a Conor McGregor, Tyron Woodley, prefer to go more for money fights instead of the more deserving opponent? Are you for it? Does it frustrate you? What are your thoughts on that?
No, I'm definitely for it. Athletics is a finite resource. You got to squeeze the lemon for all it's worth. And I'm totally for athletes trying to get as much as they can out of their athletic pursuits. I'm all for it.
Now, you're only the third guest on our show to not only have a UFC fighter page, and you have an IMDb film page. Now, you've dabbled in some acting already in your life, and our own Phil Daru plans to dabble in some acting and being in the film industry a little bit too soon. Do you have any tips for Philip Daru on acting?
Well, I would say definitely get yourself a good agent, and also a film coach, or an acting coach rather. It's always good to learn from those that can teach you. Whether it's stepping in a cage or stepping in front of or on a stage, like I recently did for an open mic. It's best to learn from those that are around you, and if that's in a different field, then learn from those in that different field as well.
Yeah. No, I like that. I'll take that to account, brother. Thank you.
No problem.
All right, let me ask one more, and then Phil could take another one. I mean, now speaking of the acting, and you just mentioned it with the comedy, you made your foray into comedy at open mic night. How did that come about, getting into the acting now? And I have a key question, because you hear so much about getting out in front of a stage, in front of that crowd, and they're expecting you to make them laugh. Can be very nerve-wracking, very difficult. What was more terrifying for you, getting up in front of that crowd as a comedian for the first time, or stepping into a cage as a fighter for the first time?
I'd actually throw in a third wheel. The most nervous-wracking one was being a ring boy for the first time. Psychologically speaking, I love being a fighter, and I love the idea of competition. And, a lot of it has to do with the way I kind of look at fighting as, it's a test. And if you studied, you usually pass with flying colors. But as far as a ring boy, a lot of that had to do with my concern about what other people thought. I was so concerned about their impression of me rather than just going out there having fun and enjoying the moment, like I do in fighting. The open mic, it really came in fruition in the last couple of weeks. I was asked by a friend of mine, Todd Shapiro, who is the voice of a radio show on Sirius, and they have what's called open mic virgins. It's a night of virgins for comedy. Okay. And, they gave me the opportunity to do it about a week or two ago, and I literally put it together, my bit, quote unquote bit. It was 5 minutes, literally a day or two before, because I didn't want to overstress it. I thought that, I put together kind of like a sequence in regards to what my overall theme that I wanted to talk about. Which more or less was me getting out of my comfort zone. I did bring up the fact that, my first loss as fighting is what got me into mixed martial arts. Obviously, I talked about, getting into it when I was enlightened in the mind and the body in university, but that was after I actually got into a fight at at one of the local watering holes at a bar in my hometown. And the whole incident got filmed and was put on YouTube. And it was actually my first defeat in any capacity because I was essentially king of the burbs, king of suburbia in the mean streets of Mississauga, Ontario. Yeah. And it wasn't until like my first loss that thousands of people saw it. And this was back in 2010, before I knew what the hell YouTube was and the concept of going viral. So I, along with 200,000 other individuals, saw my first defeat. And, at a moment of despair, I talked to my father, and, he's very stoic, and he had the words of wisdom. Well, you like that UFC shit so much. Why don't you go and learn some mixed martial arts and make sure it never happens again? And originally, my whole game plan was to learn a couple of things and go beat up the guy that embarrassed me. But obviously, I was enlightened. I became much more enlightened through mixed martial arts. And Valentine's Day was just a couple days away from now. I'd happily send that man a couple of dozen long stem roses for getting me into mixed martial arts.
All right. Sounds like a fucking movie, man.
yeah, no, it's actually pretty hilarious. And the idea that, and it actually, moreover, I got in a lot of high school fights, and to the point where my teachers, they kind of said that I wouldn't amount to anything, et cetera, that violence doesn't pay. And kind of like the end of my open mic is the fact that in my high school, proudly on the Athletic Hall of Fame, is my picture and my stats, and my teachers have to walk by and say that son of a bitch. He really proved that violence does pay when it pays.
That's awesome, man. I like that. I truly do like that story, man. But so doing all these things. Oh, thank you. Hold on. My son is giving me his trucks. Hold on.
Oh, very nice of him.
I will in a minute, okay? So, my bad. So, anyways, doing all these things, going on stage, doing comedy, going inside a ring to not just fight but also be a card holder. How do you mentally get ready and prepare for this? Like, how do you go about? I know certain fighters. I was a fighter for 8 years. I train a lot of fighters. I know they all have their separate things that they do. What do you do to actually get ready to perform and perform at the best of your abilities?
Yeah, no, I think for me specifically, it's the fact that I get to do what I love in a non-traditional way. What really scared me kind of, getting into the workforce before I knew that mixed martial arts would have been a career was the idea of, quote unquote, being successful in whatever endeavor I did. And I knew right away I wasn't the office type, and that being in a traditional ad firm wouldn't suit me. And I found the opportunity to kind of really jump on the whole fighter's journey truly a beautiful opportunity. And, I think I mentally prepare in the fact that I'm having fun every step of the way. And those that know me and have been around me even during the weight cut will know that I'm actually all smiles and all laughs, even at my worst in regards to a weight cut. Mm-hmm. And a mutual friend of ours, Tony Ricci, can vouch for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good, man. I get a lot of guys that I work with, and I know that some people can actually be hell to deal with when they're cutting weight. So that's actually a great thing for Tony to have also, just to have a guy like you not having to worry about, dealing with, problems and that nature. But it shows in the way you fight. It shows in the way you carry yourself that you don't let anything really bother you, which is also a good thing. It could be from the past incidences that you've had and the way you just go about carrying yourself. So I do commend you on that, man. You're doing a good job.
I appreciate it. Work in progress. I think one of the really interesting things that's kind of come out with the Ring Boy opportunity, one, obviously, having the conversation of that in the true form or pursuit of equality, the answer is more, not less. But also, I'm getting like 70% positive feedback and 30% negative. And, I can't really control what other people say or think of me, but I can control how I react. So, the occasional troll comes on there and, calls me this, that, and the other, and I want to be like, explain point by point, and somehow in 200 characters or less why he or she or, the Russian bot is wrong. But, no, it more or less is an opportunity for me to kind of control my own expression and kind of, the overall conversation. And not to sweat the little things.
Now, in an interview of yours I listened to, it was mentioned you are a pro wrestling fan. I'm a big fan as well, have been since I was a kid. Let the world know the Elias top 3 all-time favorite wrestlers. Oh,
yeah. No, I have to go with definitely Heartbreak Kid. Shawn Michaels was like, the pageantry, the male bravado, but in a sexy way he did it. And he was obviously a ladies' man in some capacity. And also being Canadian, Bret Hart was a huge, influence in my life growing up, and especially as a pro wrestler that I looked up to, being local, et cetera, et cetera. And third, Hulk Hogan. He was, he spanned generations in regards to the many different people that he, the many different people that he was able to influence and entertain along the years. And it went well beyond wrestling. He's truly an individual that transcended wrestling and still does in some capacity.
I'm glad to see that the Canadians do not hold a grudge anymore against Shawn Michaels after the whole Montreal thing. I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I know. What are some of your interests away from fighting and all the entertainment-related pursuits and the acting, not the modeling, not any of that stuff, the comedy stuff? Like, what's your favorite genre of music? What's some of your favorite movies? Other kinds of hobbies you do away from it all?
Yeah, no, I love, even though it's athletics, I love running. I use it as almost therapy in the sense that I've done a bunch of marathons, half marathons, et cetera. So, it's kind of my alone time to plan out my day, my week, et cetera. Some people find running to be a boring thing, but I can plan out my whole week on Monday or Sunday with a run. In regards to, what I like to, in regards to music or, literature, I'm a huge, I'm a little bit of a fair weather fan in regards to music, because I can find anything with a beat nice to listen to. But you got to go with Red Hot Chili Peppers or the Rage Against Machine. As my go-to actual artist to listen to. And with the Red Hot Chili Peppers, I've seen them 6 times in concert over the years, and there's still someone that's still creating great music and killing it on stage. So they're the true, example of a performer on stage. And I really like to keep in sync with both Canadian and international politics. I think they're very important to understand what's kind of going on. It was a U.S. politician, Ralph Nader, who once said, if you don't turn on to politics, politics will turn on you. So I think that's a very big, poignant thing to happen. And I would imagine that's something that's kind of going on in the States in regards to how, unfortunately, polarizing things are kind of going in the direction in politics.
I mean, well, since you brought up politics, I'm going to go just throw it out there. Donald Trump, thoughts?
Well, yes, exactly. Just well, obviously, he's almost like a how do I put this? He's almost
cartoon
like
character.
Cartoon character is definitely well. Even though Stephen Colbert actually just launched a cartoon on him,
Okay.
but I think he's very much a savant of chaos. He's really good at understanding the media and how being a chaos candidate was very successful for him. Right? He's the true essence of no news is bad news, and he used that in the campaign to basically create false equivalence and distraction along the way. And now he's continuing that with. I think a lot of the leaks are actually coming from him and are purposeful. How can the media keep up with everything that's happened in the span of a week? Never mind his whole presidency. I just think the really unfortunate thing is stoking the flames of certain people that he gives credence when he says, there are good people on both sides. I just think, there are people that do follow him that are not, not stoking those same flames and, have really good points, because he's not really a person of conviction. He's just kind of going with the flow and kind of is very in tune with his 30% that follow him, his ride or dies, if you will. And he's really good at kind of talking to them, but it's unfortunately at the behest of the 70% of the rest of the population.
All right, so, the last question, it's from Lehigh Dent on Twitter. She had two. You pretty much summed up the first one, but I think the second one's a good way to end the interview, unless Phil has another question, of course. What, do you have any opponents in mind or any kind of ideas of possible fight you will have next, and a when and a place and a time it should be?
Yeah, no, I definitely want to keep active. I'm looking for an April, May return. Someone that's kind of on my radar is Taos Lattis. I think he is, a solid ace on the ground in jiu-jitsu, but he's also someone that's proved himself in stand-up. He's had a resurgence as of late, and it's someone that who recently lost to Brad Tavares. And I think it's an opportunity to show, because I do think I did beat Brad Tavares in my last fighting, if you look at the strikes and the actual control time. But more importantly, I can show with Taos Lattis that anything Brad can do, I can do better, and I'll go for the finish.
Nice. Do you have any any type of I don't know, what would you want to do for the end of the year? Like maybe fight 2 or 3 times before the end of the year, or one more time, or are you content with where you're at? What are you thinking?
I'm hoping for at least 2 this year. One of the big things, we talked about acting. I'm actually the lead and executive producer in my own independent film coming out. It's called The Last Hit. It's a working title. We are actually in the early stages, if all goes well, with Capcom. And if we do get the trademarks needed, it will no longer be called The Last Hit. It will actually be called Street Fighter. I play an MMA. Yeah, nice. I actually play an MMA fighter, huge stretch, who gets injured, and I no longer can fight, or at least my fighting career is in question. I'll actually be spending the majority of the film in a wheelchair. And the whole overall conversation that I want to have with this film is, life after athletics, and the idea that I play an MMA fighter who gets injured, and I'm forced to reinvent myself, and I do that through the way of fight game and competitive video gaming. So I actually become a competitive video gamer, if all goes well, through Street Fighter. And through my character, either Ryu or Vega, we haven't decided, I basically go to the World Championships in esports Again, it really talks about the life after athletics, and it's something that I will have to deal with, and hopefully not for a long time from now. But it's shown with this pursuit and others that I'm trying to build as many opportunities that will last my life well beyond athletics.
I mean, it's got to be Vega. It has to be Vega, no?
There you go.
Yeah, it's probably perfect for you, man, to be honest.
All right, so, I mean, that's pretty much it. Is there anything for the people that aren't following you on social media, anything you want to promote in terms of social media, Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, any websites people can go to, YouTube pages anybody can frequent and check out videos and any interesting content, or the website, maybe something to look out for other acting or movie things you might want people to frequent and look at?
Yeah, for sure. Well, obviously, thank you both, you gentlemen, for having me on. It was a pleasure chatting with you. Everyone can follow me on @Elias Theodorou on Twitter and Instagram. Yesterday I did my live tweeting, and I plan to do it for the next event as well. Always welcome to have people join in on the conversation. In regards to the stuff that's coming out, we mentioned it earlier that I had my open mic debut. I will actually be posting the video on my YouTube channel, the main event, trademark included. And people can catch that. It'll probably drop tomorrow. We're kind of going with the theme of Maine Mondays with yours truly. So be sure to check that out. And if you haven't seen my first segment, The Ring Boy, please do that as well. But I'm sure people are, tired of hearing my voice at this point. But no, thank you again, gentlemen. True pleasure chatting.
It's pleasure's all ours, bro.
All right, Phil, you always know. Give me your social before we go.
Okay, Twitter, Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram. I'm not doing Snapchat no more. I don't like it. Elias, do you like Snapchat?
No, I've kind of gotten rid of it after a few of the updates. I kind of got over it.
Wow, update nightmare! My goodness, losing money.
They ruined it for me. So, anyways, Instagram and Twitter is Daru Strong, and then you can check me out on my website www.darustrong.com. We good to go.
All right, I mean, for me, Jericho Vendetta, Instagram, Chief Seats Chat on Twitter, but of course, the Fight Strength Podcast has a Facebook page. You can find it under that name. On Twitter at FightStrength_. Remember, you can always listen to all our previous episodes on Spotify, iHeartRadio, of course, iTunes, Google Play, Player FM, all these places. And remember, we're always going to have new episodes Mondays at 9:30, just like this one. Big thank you again to Elias Theodorou. Big thank you to Tony Ricci for connecting us so you can come on. Really appreciate it. I am Jason Burgos. He is Phil Daru. That is it for this week, everybody. Bye-bye.